All right. Hey, everyone. Happy Leap Day. Thanks for spending it with us. Hey, we know it's hard to take an hour out of your day and join a webcast. So we really appreciate it. We're really excited that you guys are here. We've been working really hard on this program. I'm Zach King, by the way, Sage Network Systems, and we've got a good panel today here to really try and dive into that Microsoft stack. M365 has just gotten harder and harder, as I'm sure a lot of you know. And then we've also combined some of those really powerful security features with the folks over at Blackpoint Cyber with their 24/7 SOC, but they do a whole lot more than that as well. Just trying to really get organizations more secure in just a really difficult environment. So we really want this to be as interactive as possible. Ask questions, ask any questions. We're going to be here to answer them. Obviously, we'll have our presentation between Justin and Tony. We're going to have a lot of good dialogue, and I think we're going to go through a whole lot of good information here. So, again, really excited. Thank you again. Can't thank you enough. And I'm going to kick it over to Tony, and he can get us started.
Absolutely. Thanks, Zach. And thanks everybody for joining. The mystification of Microsoft and how we layer security here between our collective organizations in partnership with Justin over at Blackpoint Cyber is kind of a neat thing. The landscape is evolving on a daily basis, making it harder and harder for organizations to adopt and manage and maintain. Our methodology is really looking at your licensing stack as a perimeter or a benchmark into the world of, how do we layer that with costs that you may already be spending cash on. Little housekeeping things here for us as well. We are more than just a security firm. We have collaboration tool sets, security, data, network, audio, video. We help our organizations in discovery phases to assessment phases to design and implementation. But as an organization, we like to be your partner. Our calls aren't always about sales. A lot of times it's just, hey, I want to know something, or what's your opinion? The world of IT has got a lot of layers to the onion, and I'm just a big believer that getting as many opinions and facts as you can helps really shape your buying journey as you go through the world of Microsoft and security as a whole from a layered security perspective. And as Zach said, we want this to be informative. We want this to be communicative. So by any means, throw a chat out there. We'll answer the best we can. If not, we can always, take it offline and get back to you with answers. But one of the cool things I did this PowerPoint presentation recently for another webinar, and there was a lot of AI conversation. So I just threw in there a little bit that, some of these slides are generated by Copilot. I put in some generalized topics and let it spit out some data, and then kind of, transformed and shaped it so it was actually digestible. But the foundation was built by Copilot. So neat little thing. In the world of licensing, we've had an evolution. Used to be the days of the perpetual license. Well, obviously we all know that's gone. We're into our subscription models. So we won't deep dive too much into this because I really want to transform this more about the security verticals within the Microsoft suite. But always good to know, some of those perpetual licenses still exist. But majority of the functionality is driven into that Office 365, whether it be the business premium suites or the enterprise suites with adders. And just for those that don't know or sort of know but want to know more, you always have your business suite offerings within the Microsoft stack. That's your business basics, business standards, business premiums. We here really enjoy the business premium suite, mainly because it comes with the one function, well, more than one, but one of the predominant functions, which is our EDR capabilities. One of the awesome things with our Blackpoint integration is just that deep, true integration into your Office 365 environment from an EDR security standpoint. So that gives us that centralized CVE management, both from cloud, internal, external, as well as any telemetry data that's happening within your ecosystem, i.e. meaning, if there's something vulnerable found on an asset, Blackpoint's mean to responds, we'll pull that data in. And Justin will go into deep dives on this, but one of the great things that we see as a consumer of this product on a daily basis with our clients across the country is the quick response and having that human element involved in it, where it's not just pure automation and AI, it's actual tradecraft hackers that are helping identify, find, discover, to bring that information downward to you as a consumer of a product, where we lessen that noise at such a greater scale than some of the other toolings that you may use on the marketplace, whether they be on-prem SIMs, hosted SIMs, or co-managed SIMs. As you step out of the business suite, we step into our enterprise suite of licensing within the Office 365 ecosystem. That's more of your E-suite, right? We have our E3s, our E5s, our F3s, all these other toolings. And for us, when we do an analyzation of licensing within the Microsoft ecosystem, it's really understanding your business use case. And there's a lot of creative ways we can build a layer of licensing, whether it's adding in adders for certain functionalities or not. We've done a good deal of work with organizations that had bought into the Enterprise E-Suite, Microsoft Enterprise E-Suite of licenses, not the Office E-Suite. And we find that in a lot of cases, Microsoft has done a really good job at their XDR within their Office 365 ecosystem, but it's certainly not a Mona Lisa. You get a paintbrush, some paint, and a canvas, and say go to town and make it the way you want, where the consumer was kind of thinking, gosh, I buy this license, all this stuff just starts to happen for me. And unfortunately, that just isn't the case. And there's a lot of finessing that one needs to do when you enable these feature-rich offerings to gain the true value. As I touched on earlier, as we bring in that business premium, I'm still able to cover a lot of those core componentries. And some of those I'll still discuss here in this PowerPoint presentation. But it gives you that freedom and flexibility with, there's obviously some limitations, being that it's a more of that, mid-market space license around that 300 users, 60 servers. And then we have ways we can step out of it into others, E-suites to, to cover the delta or the gap of your overall licensing stack. But again, that commoditization of pricing early on, where then we bring in our 365 SOC with Blackpoint to cover that identity, that asset, that noise of a security landscape. And I joke about this, I had a cyber discovery with a user here recently, and we first started the conversation about how do you think your users compute within your ecosystem.
Right.
And at the tail end of it was, okay, let's have a conversation after we're done with our audit with our SOC. And I bet you a darn good steak dinner that the actions of your users are going to be wildly different than what you see today. And one of those that we're seeing quite often is the function of private VPN offerings, and then trying to educate why those things matter within your compute ecosystem, and why we care about it, and how we identify, we build exceptions so that we can see the forest through the trees. And that's just one small example of things that, having that team of threat hackers and threat hunters, and having that client-based identification, as well as that identity hook into a singular platform, just brings us so darn much power.
Can I touch on that really quick as well when it comes
Absolutely,
to the identity side of the house? So here's what's really unique, right? So we got a lot of people on this call, by the way. Hi, everybody. My name's Justin Weller. I work for Blackpoint Cyber. But one of the things that we want to talk about is we actually built a identity response for Azure. And the reason why we did that is because, think about this. How many times have you gone to a website and it just says, well, just sign in with your Microsoft account? Right? When it comes to M365, when it comes to these different licenses that Tony and team are talking about today, yes, email is a massive part of it. The software solutions are a massive part of those solutions, right? But the identity is also the key. Threat actors have been after identity from day one. Legitimate access is basically their holy grail, right? Like if they can get into a system using real credentials, that's the key. So not only do you have the ability to log into your Microsoft site and get your email and things of that nature with these types of identities through M365, but you're also utilizing that for different things like LinkedIn or just other platforms that are out there at this point in time. Being able to contextualize that identity and understand, yeah, this identity was breached, but it was breached here, not on the Microsoft side. That way you can kind of respond to those things significantly quicker. So just a little anecdote. We're going to actually talk a little bit about how the cloud identity has actually started pivoting to the on-premise identity when I get to my portion of this as well.
Yeah, great point, Justin. It's really good clarity. And just for the folks too, It's not just Microsoft. We do get into Google Workspace as well, so
Yep.
that we do cover that core identity offering that we're
Agreed.
seeing with most of our clientele, whether it be Microsoft and or Google. And we have use cases with business through M&A, and just random use cases where we have to manage both for an organization. So again, great thing there is it's able to see both of those sides of the house and bring that contextual clarity. But more importantly, what we see as an organization that sustains our security for a lot of our clients is just the cut down in the notification fatigue. We're not getting bombarded by so many notifications that it's really hard to see the forest through the trees, again, that coiny analogy of what we should be focusing on versus what's just sheer noise. So again, great point. On the pillars of Microsoft here, we'll just kind of touch on a couple more things and we'll get right into those security focused things. For us, what we're seeing is a massive growth within the Intune and Autopilot ecosystems, trying to bring that provision automation, control compliance, the conversation we have on a regular basis. Hey, we want to become CIS control-based driven. How do we get there, right? We got to analyze what we're doing in group policy versus what we're doing in Intune. And then as we make that journey that we're hearing so many of our clients want to go onto, which is, hey, how do we get rid of domain controllers? How do we get to the cloud? Right? We still got to have a way to control those security vectors, those risky anomalous things that are happening in our compute environment. And again, when we look at licensing, this is core, right? It's back to understanding the license you're in, on which verticals it's giving you to truly manage and enable these features and still follow the rights to use of Microsoft. We see a lot of times organizations are utilizing the Office suite of the E suite, right? And those are more driven on applications, not necessarily modern enterprise controls. So again, that layers is interesting. We've had some really good successes with our clientele, trying to find ways to drive down overall costs, increase security footprint. And our pitch, as always, is, hey, I want to bring in a value-added product such as a Blackpoint to now lower our operational overhead within our IT team. I heard a term with a client I was with recently, which is tech debt. And I really enjoy that terminology because it's so real. And what we're seeing in the marketplace, budgets are compressing. Staffing's getting harder, finding qualified people's getting harder, and we can't continue to throw that noise on top of it because all it's doing is driving that tech debt up to a higher rate, and we're left with more operational headaches as well as backlogged work that we just can't get to. So in the security in a nutshell, really what we focus on is a few different things. Now, where Blackpoint comes in and takes over on some of these, but I wanted to more so just talk about the bigger verticals in that Microsoft suite when we talk about that XDR side of things, right? EDR, obviously we all know what EDR is, and if not, endpoint detection and response. It's more of that proactive ML learning of how I compute on a machine to see when I find processes, sub-processes doing things they shouldn't do. And again, that falls in that Windows Defender for endpoint, Windows Defender for business. On the endpoint side, it's a P2. Again, get a little bit all down in the weeds there, but again, that offering is in that cloud. The Windows Defender for cloud is more of that notifiable actions that an end user could take. And this is where that onion gets really tough when I talked back about that Mona Lisa, is it builds great notifications, but now it's the run book maintenance that matters, right? What do I do when I catch these things? How do I react to a highly risky user account? How do I react when it does this, right? That's where that paintbrush becomes instrumental in creating that overall ecosystem. Windows Defender for Identity is more so about that actual account, gives me the ability to plug into my domain controllers on-prem and start to see those anomalous activities both on-prem, in cloud. And then again, utilizing Windows Defender for cloud on top of identity to build that notification, i.e. impossible travel, someone's email was created from a forwarding rule X, Y, and Z. And then on lastly on the list is our SIM, right? That's the Sentinel system in Microsoft. That's that SIM-based modeling for those overall in-house style feature-rich functions. And again, like I touched on earlier, Business Premium is a great offering. It does have limitations up to 300 in a tenant and up to 60 servers. That doesn't mean you can't step over, i.e. meaning I get the 301, I plug in my M3 with an adder or my M5 or whatever it may be, and I continue on covering my delta of my organization. But point there being, can I utilize that stack to help commoditize costs There in turn, if I'm selling to my boss, why do I need security and how am I going to pay for it? Well, if we can compress that license, bring in the Blackpoint style offering at a very budget sensitive point of view, all of a sudden I have a really cool layer. And as any IT person knows, you know, what keeps me up at night is all of the risk. And I want someone's eyes on it when I'm on vacation. It is a holiday. I have a team of people I know that lives are lives. So having that third party eye on it 24/7, 365 is in our landscape today is such a monumental thing for us to run with. Moving down, when you get into that E suite, we talk about our P1s and our P2s. Just think of it simply: P1, no EDR; P2, EDR. Now there's some other features and functions such as advanced threat hunting and more of those automated actions. But again, Justin's team, this is where they rock. We don't have to necessarily worry about those things, right? I just want an EDR so I can get them the proper information to let those tradecraft hackers go do what they do, utilizing the underlying SIM, utilizing their analytics, and then putting good human on it to control my noise. The one we're seeing a lot of movement on that does come with a whole bunch of confusion is Defender for Cloud. When it comes to those server-based systems, right? i.e. I'm running some cloud-based Azure workloads. It does have some cool things like some integrations into more CVE managed tool sets, but it all comes down via the Windows Defender for Cloud, and that is a per server cal. FYI, utilizes Azure Arc to get the system into systems. Once it's there, I can apply benchmark policies. I can apply best practice policies. The P1, P2 is a bit different in this stack. The P1 does include EDR when you look at Windows Defender for Cloud. So just a little bit of differentiation. Microsoft's always done such a great job at naming things, right? We're on like the 15th different name of Azure AD. So I'm sure we'll have more to go with that. Conditional access is really a vertical that business needs to understand. And why I say that is Microsoft is transforming their licensing stack. A lot of your lower level license allow you to do per user MFA. That means I can go into my admin center, find Tony, right click on Tony, turn on MFA. It doesn't give me a lot of granular edge style access, i.e. I want to block unapproved countries other than the US, Mexico, Canada, whatever it may be. I want to put more granular controls on who, what, why, and how can get there. I want to say I don't want to allow you know, for an example, SMS as a method of multi-factor authentication. So the point of the matter isn't necessarily about the granularization of the things I can do. It's the movement that Microsoft is making, i.e. movement by, I think it's September 25, they will be deprecating the per user MFA and it's going to be left with security defaults and or conditional access policies. Security defaults, it's all on every account. Simple analogy, I have a scanner that I want to be able to SMTP to email. Now I got to figure out how I'm going to MFA that. Or with conditional access, I can put in exclusions for certain things and control that. You know, bad analogy, but yet a real analogy that that we see in the business place. Another thing we are seeing a lot of here recent is Microsoft's managed policies. And those managed policies run for 90 days. After 90 days, they turn on. So we've gotten calls from our clients saying, holy man, all of our accounts are just getting MFA'd. Well, it's because the managed policy was put in there on read-only mode for 90 days. They never noticed it, and all of a sudden that enabled. And that broke things like gal sync. It broke things like their end users just not really sure how to manage it, right? So learning and utilizing conditional access, and we get real clever with this. One of the latest ones we've been doing more and more about is controlling where a user can create their MFA from. What does that mean? Well, I'm on LinkedIn. I pop Tony's got a new job working at so-and-so organizations. Hackers hit that account, try to compromise it because the account's set up. I haven't been on the site yet to set up my account. They get in there and add a third-party cell phone number and let it sit. I then come on board, put my MFA in, get my authenticator app working. Frankly and honestly, I never go and look at what are all my authentication sources. And now we're left in a position where they go in and pop that account via third-party cell phone that you or none the wiser was there. So now we utilize conditional access to say, if you're going to create secure information, it must be done from a trusted location. Now that trusted location could be a VPN. It could be an office location and or both, but it controls where we can do those more security-centric things to try to control who, what, where, when, and how can add secure information into your portal. There again, controlling that identity source from the Office 365 tenant. Now we'll get a little bit into the Blackpoint side here. I'll move through some of these kind of lightly because this is really Justin's expertise, and you guys will enjoy, and girls will enjoy listening to him speak about it. Justin and I have had some offline conversations. We get into geek speak for a really long time on a lot of different things. But again, this is the greatness of working with us and Sage and NTech here, is we want to bring in these partners that truly know what we're going through in the ecosystem, whether it be from us on the managed services side to our clients trying to utilize this. And we do have clients in a multitude of ways. You don't necessarily need to work with us to work within the Blackpoint system, right? We do work with our partners. We do it as a resale. You get access. You're able to manage your environment. You're part of the workflow. You get the SOC phone calls. And then we're always there for third level support, second level support, night and weekend and holiday support. But it really gives us a great, I'll say, point of view to our clients in terms of how this all can work together. But with that being said, I'll pass the mic over to Justin. And Justin, just let me know. I can move on when needed and run the slides.
Yeah, no, most definitely. Well, thanks for kind of teeing this up a little bit for me. Really appreciate it a ton. When it comes to, listen, in IT, we love our 3-letter acronyms. We just love it. MSP, MDR, TAS, whatever it is, right? We absolutely love our 3-letter acronyms, and they're thrown around a lot. But here's what I can be really confident in telling you. How you define the letters and how you define the words inside of those acronyms really kind of is what sets different organizations apart. So when you're talking about, managed detection and response, right? There's been this migration in security over the years. Originally it was like, hey, I need spam with antivirus. Then I need, that wasn't enough. Now I need, EDR, and that wasn't enough. Now I need a SIM solution, and now that's not enough. Now I need MDR. And during this evolution, right, these phrases are coined, and people start lumping themselves in, and even kind of start marketing themselves in a certain way that they're just kind of not. So if any of you have heard of Gartner before, Gartner is a research organization, and they really kind of go and do a lot of market research and really try to understand sentiment of what people are looking for, and really kind of help put some sharp edges around these different terms that are out there in the marketplace. So a lot of these things, when it comes to true MDR, based on Gartner's definition, there's some things that really need to be available to you. Now, first and foremost, you have to be able to remotely deliver it. Right? That's the key. I mean, imagine, having Tony having to come to every single one of your guys' offices and kind of sneakernet around offices. I don't know why I'm saying that word anymore. That's not real anymore, right? But coming to every single one of your locations for all 8,000 of your devices and having to physically install something onto your machine or whatever the case may be. That's not a thing anymore. It's 2024. It has to be able to be remotely delivered. And this next thing is the most important piece. It has to be human-led. EDR is still extremely important in 2024. Endpoint detection and response, man, great for known malware, known behavioral patterns, things of that nature. Think of like software fighting software. That is what you need. The problem is this. When you're talking about this other side of the house, which is called tradecraft is basically behavior that doesn't really look inherently bad. I talked about earlier a little bit about the identity being the most important piece. Do you want to know why threat actors want to get legitimate credentials? It's because they can move undetected. That's it. They want to be able to obfuscate themselves from these traditional software solutions that are out there, like endpoint detection and response. Now, just because they found a new way to hide themselves, does that mean that I don't lock my doors because now I've got locks on my garage door or my windows? No, I still have to lock the windows. I still have to lock the doors as these things continue to move forward. It's going to be this cat and mouse game, unfortunately, until the end of time, right? That's just the way that it works. Because these threat actors, let me be real with you, they may be immoral, but they are not stupid. They understand how these software solutions work. They understand when you guys are working, when you guys are asleep. They're like a terrible Santa Claus, right? They know all of these different things, and they use this to their advantage to hide themselves from these traditional solutions. So what you need and what every business needs in 2024 is a human-led 24/7 SOC, period, full stop. Yes, you need an alarm. Yes, you need to have locks on your doors. Yes, you need to do these different things. But here's the question: if you're not home and you're not aware, and someone's breaking into your house, think about this. If the police are going to take 10 to 12 minutes for you to get to your home after that alarm kicks off, even 5, if they know the important things to get, what kind of damage can still be done inside of your house? What we are is we are the armed security guard that is walking around the house while it's locked up. And we may be in the front of the house and they tried to get into the back. But as soon as we realize they're in, we are on site making moves. We are tip of the spear type things. We're in there kicking down the doors, safety's off kind of a thing, right? So our number one focus here, and I'll talk about this under modern SOC functions, we really want to act first and call second. In 2024, when we talk about, these different things, you have to have action. Threat actors, they have pivoted to speed over stealth. The second thing, or the third thing that you need here is it needs to be turnkey, right? Our solution is very quickly deployed. Once you come on board with Tony and his team, it's literally protection in minutes. It does not take long to set up our solution. We can deploy it remotely with, obviously Tony can deploy it remotely with our help and connect your M365 tenants to it. And really within a couple of hours, you are protected, you are watched and covered 24/7. Modern SOC functions. Now, modern SOC functions kind of goes into these next 2 points here, right? Where you've got to make sure that you have the ability to not just detect the malware side of the house, but also detect the behavior. Hey, I don't know if anybody on this call has ever played a game called Civilization before, but I'm a super big nerd. Tony talked about us geeking out for a little bit. I've been playing Civilization for as long as I can remember. And this game, the way it's designed is it's designed for you to kind of command and conquer your army and really kind of expand and explore and build your civilization out. But the beginning of the game is that you are dropped into this big map and you don't know what is in this map. You don't know how big the map is, how many continents there are, who else is playing this game, what resources are available to me. And you have to now go and explore and find those things. The same thing is true with threat actors. When they breach an account in the cloud or they get onto an endpoint, they don't know where they're at yet. They now have to kind of say, well, what can I do? What permissions do I have? Where can I go? Can I get access to this? Am I in an office? Am I out of an office? Am I part of an identity group or not? And they start discovering. During that discovery process is called tradecraft. They're oftentimes utilizing IT admin tools that are designed to help IT professionals do their jobs, but they're basically weaponizing them to essentially do their dirty work, if you will. Now, those types of solutions, they're never going to get flagged by EDR. And that is what you need a modern SOC for. A modern SOC will identify and find that type of behavior. And that's what we do here at Blackpoint. But finding it is not just the important part. You have to disrupt it. Period, full stop. I talked about it just a couple of moments ago. Threat actors are pivoting from stealth to speed. The cat's out of the bag, so to speak, if you will. We talked about this cat and mouse game. There was a period in time where managed detection and response, it wasn't a massive thing. A lot of people were relying on EDR, and that was where it was at. So these threat actors, we started seeing them pivoting to these different solutions. Well, now these sentinels that are walking around the house, in my example a little bit earlier, are becoming more and more and more prevalent, and more businesses are starting to understand that it's just necessary. And to combat that, we have this concept called dwell time. Dwell time is basically the amount of time that a threat actor, from when they get into an environment to the time that they execute their attack, that is considered to be called dwell time. In the beginning, 3-4 years ago, the dwell time was massive. They were able to kind of stay in there, kind of sight unseen for the most part. Now it has shrunk dramatically because of the advent of all of these MDR solutions that are out there. So what they've done to pivot on that is they've done to, using faster encryption methods, right? They are doing things like partial encryption, to where they are, only encrypting a certain percentage of the file. So it's still unusable to you as the business, but they're able to do it much, much quicker. They're automating a lot of their attacks. They're pivoting, the advent of AI, all these different things. The dwell time has gone down dramatically. And so you have to be able to disrupt it real time. threat hunting off of an alert that came in at 2 o'clock in the morning, and hopefully you wake up at 7 and get to it and no damage has been done. Those days are gone. You need somebody watching the house 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. But most importantly, not only do you disrupt it, you got to contain it. So at Blackpoint, what's really cool here is that we have the ability to not only just isolate individual accounts and individual devices themselves, but we also have the ability to continue to watch the rest of the devices that are under management by Tony's team. And we will be taking a look and saying, hey, you know what? There was a fire that was inside of the house. We identified that it started here. We put the fire out here. We go ahead and contained it so it couldn't spread. And by the way, we're watching the rest of the devices that we're managing here to see if there's any indicators of compromise on those as well, to make sure that it's not continuously spreading. So that, in a really, really high level, is kind of how we partner with Tony's team and what you really need to be looking for with some sort of a security provider in 2024 and beyond. Tony, would you mind flipping over to the next slide? Now, this is why we've actually gone kind of all in as an organization, right? We have the humans behind the technology to be able to build this stuff out, to be able to protect, to be able to respond real time, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. However, it is no secret. One of the best kept secrets is that Microsoft has really turned into an incredibly good security partner. I make the joke all the time that wasn't always the case. The security was kind of an afterthought with Microsoft, 6-7 years ago. But now with this M365 suite, with these different types of plans that are out there, the business premiums, the EDR, the Sentinel plans, they have really turned into a top tier security partner. And so what we've done is we've gone pretty much all in with the Microsoft ecosystem. And this has been part of our plan for many, many years at this point in time. So what we have the ability to do is we pair up with an organization like Tony's and we say, listen, we've got 24/7 active cloud tradecraft protection. So not just the actual threat itself, but the behavior behind the threat. So we've got the ability to protect your Azure AD identity, the ability to protect your Exchange, which is going to be kind of your email, and then SharePoint, which will be kind of the file sharing, sync and sharing solutions that are out there through Microsoft. We also offer simplified client management. So we can have, policy creation for Managed Defender for endpoint and business and all the different plans that are available for that. We give visibility into vulnerabilities. So we ingest Microsoft Secure Score for internal endpoints, and then CIS Foundation benchmark mapping. If you don't know what CIS is, it is a framework out there for basically the whole purpose of it is reducing the attack surface as small as possible. And so we've put in some really, really cool benchmarks for that, for your ability to kind of see that. And then most importantly, 24 SOC EDR management. Like, we are taking the behavioral side of the house. However, on the EDR side, we're also ingesting the alerts and metadata from a lot of different EDR solutions that are out there, including Microsoft Defender for Endpoints EDR. So, it kind of gives a good contextual awareness of the entire attack structure. So just to let you guys know, we've kind of built all of that into the Microsoft ecosystem as well, just kind of pivot on what Tony was talking about.
Yeah, on that, Justin, I think that was a really good point. There is other integrations to EDR, and it's not a must be Microsoft to get this, integration type. I got asked by one of our potential clients at one moment. He's like, well, can your SOC get into our EDR to do isolation? I said, well, we don't need to. We have our agent, right? So that Snap agent gives us that granular capabilities within the ecosystem to isolate when needed without having to have API calls, without having to have a login account to EDR.
Exactly.
Some EDRs have better granular integrations, some don't. But again, the point there being is it rides alongside. And Justin, what was it? It's like 86% or some number like that Blackpoint was catching on top of EDRs. They're in turn pretty much telling you you're catching a lot of things EDRs are missing, and that's kind of equalized across the environment. It's not just one or the other. It's just a generalized point that the agent is catching a lot of information. And I think one thing that'd be awesome if you could explain, and I'm going to put you on the spot here, but common question: do we need an EDR? Does it function right? How does someone understand that?
Yeah. So like I said before, I think I touched on it a little bit earlier in the last slide. Just because a new attack vector has emerged, which is the behavior side of the house that threat actors utilize, doesn't mean that we don't need to worry about the old attacks. Those are still prevalent. They are still out there. And this is what makes the battle really hard for businesses in 2024, because you're really fighting a battle on two sides. You're fighting a software battle, like I said, the advent of AI, machine learning, automation. It is crazy, the dark web right now, the ability to get access to networks. There's these people out there, they're called access brokers, initial access brokers, and basically their job, they wake up every single day. Sometimes they do go into an office, right? I mean, sometimes they are literally groups of people that just spend their entire time trying to gain access to networks, and then they put it on the dark web. And the whole idea of the dark web, I always laugh. We've got, the movie has got us kind of, these websites that are these, Unix websites, and we're trading in these websites that they have on the dark web that you can access to purchase these access to these different accounts. They're sophisticated. We're talking eBay style sites, customer service phone numbers. People will pick up the phones and help you with your problem. And they're selling them, and the price has gone down dramatically. The price has gone down dramatically for that stuff. So, and there's also groups that are specializing, right? A lot of businesses that are on this call today, you didn't just decide, hey, you know what? I want to be in business, so I'm going to start a business that does business. No, I do a business and I do this well. That's what these hackers have done now. They have specialized access brokers, ransomware groups that are out there, automation groups, right? Campaign groups to automate these campaigns. And the reason why I brought all that up is because, listen, ransomware is still a thing. The old payloads, the old viruses, all of those things are still a thing. Now, sometimes threat actors' endgame is a little bit different. Sometimes they do want to do data exfiltration. Sometimes it is ransomware. Sometimes it is espionage, right? But my point behind everything is you still need the EDR side. They're still looking to for those automated attacks. Now, the other side of the battle, what makes it really hard, is that there is a human element involved. For the other ones, the espionage, for data exfiltration, for all these other litany of attacks that aren't payload attacks. What I mean payload attacks is where we get access, we drop some sort of malicious software on there, and then we execute that software. We're seeing a large pivot from that. It's still massive, but we're seeing a large pivot from that to behavioral attacks. Fileless attacks is what they're called. And that is where we want to try to track them in the behavior. And here's why. Every single attack does not always have a malware component to it, but every single threat actor attack is going to have some sort of possible lateral spread, privilege escalation, and that is where we have focused ourselves. We've said, hey, let's figure out while we can get them in the discovery phase before they can even attack at that point. So do you still need EDR? 100% you still need EDR. I will never tell anybody, no, you don't need EDR, come with us. But our Snap agent is paired with an EDR or a next generation antivirus or something of that nature is top tier.
Yeah. One of the cool things too, anybody on the call that's kind of watched the cyber landscape here as of recent, we've seen the AnyDesk issues.
Right.
We've seen the Screen Connect issues.
Right.
Blackpoint has been on top of these. And we're seeing headers in our portals. We're seeing email coming out on webinars to learn more, to understand the proactiveness of the things that are happening on a continual basis as a partner is just awesome, because we can't all have a team of threat hackers within our business and our ecosystem. So having that group is so powerful. And as Justin touched on earlier, we install this in literally minutes. Whether it be through a logon script, group policy, Intune, software tools like Jamf and Adigy to get to Max. It pushes out easy. The integrations into EDR, integrations into cloud response are very systematic and intuitive and very simple to do. And we've had instances where, we've deployed this in an organization that had a common account. And within an hour, we had a vulnerability email sent to us that there was a malicious browser extension. So
Yeah.
point there being is the threat actor side is real, and they're actually looking for those threat hunts, not just saying, hey, we're going to wait till, you know, some
Right.
anomalous action happens from the moment we install our snap agent going forward. It's also what's all existing. And when you go through an IR, it's really hard when you got to turn to leadership and they ask, has there been data loss? And to say, I don't know, because we have no
Right.
tooling to tell us if we know. And more importantly, with the team, we get that incident response. So we get that know-how, that knowledge when things go bad, so we can at least have better explanations back to business on what happened, how did it get in, where did we discover it, what were they doing while they were there, versus, you know, going to dig through logs and logs and logs to try to find stuff. So, you know, just a touch point there on some of the real cool things we're seeing from the partner side when we work with our clients.
Yeah, no, and really appreciate the call out there. And I think that that's an excellent segue into my next slide here about kind of the we have a little bit of a case study, and here's where it's been kind of unique. This is going to touch on a couple of things. Number one, this is like a something that I'd never seen before in security. Number two, it also touches to your point about hey, what do you do? Like how do we handle scenarios where someone has been compromised without our solution and we come into play at this point in time? So it kind of touches on both of those things. So when I talk about lateral spread, what I basically mean is I've gotten into an account, I have gotten into a device, and now I want to try to see where I can go. Can I leave where I'm at today and get access to something else? So I'm technically laterally spreading. Historically, I've seen that stay in the cloud. If it's an M365 breach, they're trying to spread to other M365 accounts. If it's an on-premise breach, like, you know, Windows desktop or a Mac or a server or something of that nature, and they're trying to get to other, you know, locations and that kind of a thing. What I haven't seen up until this point was where they would have a cloud breach pivot to on-premise. And this is where it's actually really, really unique. So what we saw here, there was actually a Microsoft abuse. There was an account they got access to where they actually had the ability to get access to the admin center. They were then running a script on demand that basically was deploying malware to all of the endpoints through Microsoft's management system. And upon execution, here's what was really unique. We were not managing their cloud environment yet. So the partner that we had, they only had us on the endpoints, and we actually had the ability to go backwards from here. So what I'm saying is we saw that one of the endpoints was running some weird behavior. Our SOC flagged it, took a look into it, and then we identified, wait a minute, these commands are coming from a Microsoft location. So we contacted our partner at that point in time and we said, hey, let's take a look at this particular account. We're seeing these IPs. We got Cloud Response onboarded, and within 1 minute, we identified the compromised account. We were able to shut it down. And not only that, over the next period of days, we identified, I think, 10, let's just call it 10, so I'm not lying, 10 additional accounts inside of that tenancy that had been breached. It had already been breached. We don't know for how long, all of those different things. But these threat actors, they're getting sophisticated. And it doesn't matter whether you use our solution as, you know, hey, I've never been breached, but we're consistently onboarding new customers that they've been breached. They're currently under attack right now. So our system is built up in a way that whether you're breached and you don't know it, or you've never been breached and you want to go ahead and kind of move forward, it doesn't really matter, is my point. You know, we have the sophistication and the ability and the level to be able to do it. And candidly, and I'll just call it out here, I don't know another company in the world that would have caught this. And I know it sounds like I'm tooting my own horn here, but from a technical standpoint, I don't know another one that could have caught this.
Yeah, I seen it too, Justin. I mean, and gang, with this isn't, you know, just what Justin and I have spoken about, right? We have application management,
Right.
Dark web management, continual external management on report. And then I'll tell you the EDR reporting, the, you know, partner reporting that comes out. You know, I spoke with a client prior to this conversation in this webinar, and he's with a different third-party SOC, name doesn't matter. And he's like, well, I don't know if I'm scared or I'm excited, but I don't get any alerts. And what's so amazing with this, when you run one of the monthly reports, especially from an upward reporting standpoint to management, the amount of things they're monitoring, tracking, tracing, responding, and hunting to is astonishing. And this is environments down to 5, 10 employees that we've implemented this in, and the thousands and thousands of things that are getting analyzed on a monthly basis is astonishing. And what we hear in the marketplace all too often is, oh, we're a small company, nobody's looking for us, right? It's not like they're going to the yellow pages and finding the sexiest ad and say, I'm gonna go target them. They're just sending out mass spread emails, campaigns,
100%.
malware, and hoping they hit. When they hit, they sit, and then they execute. So there is no such thing as we're too small. If you're connected to the internet, you're as likely as the biggest of the big. Now, maybe more likely in some cases because you're not protecting yourselves the way you should be. But point there being, the amount of information you get that can be used as an upward reporting tool from a management perspective is super powerful, because even though you're not getting beat up with alerts, they're still managing the potential risk footprint that could be there if somebody wasn't watching. And that number is, in all of our cases, has not been small. It has been pretty darn large in terms of the threats that come in on a continual basis.
And that's kind of the purpose behind it, right? It's IT security, it's like the weirdest industry in the world. Like, the better you are at what you do, the what people are like, why do I pay you for? Like, you know what I mean? It's such an interesting thing, right? And to your point, listen, they're threat actors are no respecter of persons. Again, with automation, they are a numbers game. There's a reason why they send out millions of spam emails in a day, because if they get a 0.25 return rate, they're crushing the game. It is all numbers for them. It is so much. I'm going to be really honest with you. A lot of threat actors, they've gotten lazy. The ones that are actually infiltrating systems and things of that nature, they're not doing it all anymore. They're not going out there and trying to do their research and find what company to attack. And I'm going to go attack this one company because of this profile. Forget that. They're waking up, they're going on the dark web. They've got their Bitcoin and they're like, oh, I'm going to buy access to these today. Let me run my playbook on this. And that's how it's going to go. They've gotten lazy. And you may not be, hear me when I say, you are not too small to get breached. You are too small to make the news. That's the difference.
Yes.
That's the difference. Because, and here's the thing, if security budget and all these different things and these things weren't real and there was no way to get around any of this stuff, why do we still keep seeing all these high profile breaches? Do we think MGM doesn't have a massive IT security budget? MGM was brought down with exactly one phone call in 10 minutes.
Yeah, it's crazy, isn't it? It's crazy. You know, what was really neat, we were just working with Blackpoint and one of our clients, and we were just finalizing and going through our penetration test. And it was, you know, as an IT person, it was interesting to sit back because I literally got to watch the playbook happen in front of my eyes, right inside of our MDR. And I could see every, you know, executive or PowerShell script they were running when they would hit a share, when they were doing this, when they were doing that. And we're literally watching the logs hit the MDR as the penetration test engineer was going through it. And I'm not even talking to the guy. He was sitting in some other part of the country, but I'm sitting at a bar at a period of time just watching this whole thing go down, which was just kind of astonishing. But the level of granularity we were getting in real time, folks, in real time. You know, SIMs are great, but SIMs are always after the fact in most of the cases, right? 100%. With the agent, we're getting real-time information that somebody's watching while it's going down, not waiting for it to hit the log, then the log to run as analytics to figure out what I should do, then either trigger alert, trigger notification, or trigger runbook. We're seeing it real time. So we watch the entire penetration test in real time in front of us. Now, of course, we worked with Blackpoint, made sure it was excluded so that we weren't putting things into isolation mode, but it was kind of cool to see you know, that visibility of what was transpiring across a very large organization with multiple locations from one singular dashboard.
Definitely. And to your point, Tony, listen, I'm not here bagging on SIMs, right? In the advent of things, that was the idea, right? We want to take rules and we want to place them over the top and those kinds of things and then get alerts. That is a great starting point. The problem is, and listen, on top of that, it is fantastic for incident response. It is fantastic for digital forensics. Like, I need to know what happened. However, If I'm threat hunting off of those logs, I am threat hunting off of data and information that has happened, not things that are happening. And that is where you need that layer just before the SIM, which is a Blackpoint, where we operate very much like a SIM. We have the rules, we have those detection models in place, but the difference is we're seeing things real time and we are stopping them while the attack is happening, not investigating off of something that has happened. Makes some sense?
Yeah, absolutely. We did get one question. Zach had brought it to my forefront here on Windows Defender. I don't exactly know the question, but some contextuals around Windows Defender is it has become a very strong antivirus. 5 years ago, I think we would all be sitting here singing a different tune. And need mind, right? When we say Windows Defender, we don't necessarily mean Windows Defender that comes freeware on your Windows home computer. Right. Yes, it is that flavor, but when you onboard it within the security or Defender for endpoint modeling, it does change the bits and bytes, right? It now makes it a more feature-rich functionality that gives you, in their ASRs, their attack surface reductions are fantastic. The ability for it to understand what's happening on child processes, sub-processes is very granular and very sophisticated. For an example, in my lab, I typically do a little demonstration where I'll run a fictitious bad script. And I always do it this show, Blackpoint responds. And I'm like, what do you mean? So I'll run this script. It'll trigger an EDR test alert. My last one, within 6 minutes, I got a phone call. Hey, is this a test? We want to validate it, right? And we could see that transverse from the endpoint within environment to the security portal within Microsoft to then showing up in the Blackpoint MDR side of things to trigger somebody within the SOC. So it has gotten to be a really strong antivirus. And again, as I started this conversation, it's about layering of security and utilizing what you're already paying for. And if you're not paying for it, should we be stepping up into a different licensing suite? Again, giving us that feature-rich client conditional access policy, not just EDR, some more enhanced spam protection within the ecosystem. And so there's more things that get enabled across the ecosystem when we look at licensing as a whole. But for me, it's two of those: A, covering the perimeter of our Office 365 with more granular control and getting that EDR componentry and then ingesting that into Blackpoint for its telemetry information and processing.
Agreed. And let's be real. I mean, it's 2024. We're no longer in an environment. There's not a company in the world or on this call that has the ability to run without their infrastructure, period, full stop. No. There's just no way. And everyone has pivoted to some sort of cloud environment, M365 being the largest attack vector that's out there because they are the largest usage in business. Microsoft won that game with Windows, and Microsoft Office single SKUs, 40 years ago, 30 years ago, whatever it was. So the game is won at this point. And so at the end of the day, remember Lotus? Anyone remember Lotus? I mean, they, nice try. Yeah. But at the end of the day, my point is that you need to make sure that you're covered. You cannot compromise on security anymore. It really needs to be the number one thing that you focus every single time. That is where you start. And you start with the assumption that a breach is going to happen. That is where you have to start. You start and say, hey, you know what? I'm going to get breached. Let me work my plan backwards from that. And that is where we took our methodology, and so has Tony and his team, which has really made this a really great partnership.
Yeah, with that, we got about 8 minutes left, and would love to open it up to our basis here. Questions. Justin's got a wealth of knowledge. Would love to hear from the group here. Is there anything you would want to understand better in our time left here? We want to make this as informational as possible for everybody.
Yeah, and Tony, if I could just interject really quickly, just to let the group know, for those that have been waiting, you can send your questions in now. The gift cards have been ordered for those of you that have joined us today. So your lunch gift card should be on their way. So now you can go ahead and ask any questions. Now you can eat.
Yeah, then you can eat.
Got out ahead of the one that we probably knew was coming, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
It's good. No questions? Tony, you killed it.
Coming in yet, but
easy group apparently. Easy group.
Actually, here we go. We got one. What recommendations do you have for a small business to get started?
I mean, that's a pretty loaded loaded
Depends on which,
question.
get started on which side, right?
Yeah. Again, most businesses, big or small, you're going to have to buy Microsoft licensing. And
Yeah.
for years, we always sold, the cheaper licensing stack, because then as a managed company, we would layer tool on top of tool on top of tool. And we're trying to take a different approach to that, which is buy the right licensing, because there's other things you need in that stack beyond the business standard license that are good for your business to have. And again, that drag along effect. If I'm stepping up into that business premium, now I get my EDR, and you're working with a managed organization like ourselves, ask that question. You may not need to
Yep.
be spending the money within the layer that they're selling you, because you're already buying it in your licensing stack. So I think it's understanding the license you're buying, and then understanding how we in Blackpoint can help you kind of manage that ecosystem. Let's be real here. A ransomware event on a small business is catastrophic. It is not easy to recover from. It's not easy for big business. It's really hard for small business. So things like layered backups and making sure you got air gapped and offsite. By air gapped, I simply mean it's not necessarily connected direct line into your network. It has some layering of control. So if you are ransomware, you have a way to get to that. And then again, offsite backups, making sure you have a continuity plan to get that in case everything is down in your organization.
Yeah, and to that point, the stat, if I remember correctly, from Verizon was the average the average time of business. I think 60% of businesses that have a cyber instance, and you'll have to fact check me on that number, but it was a rather large number.
It's high, yeah.
But within 6 months of a cyber incident, even if they do get their data back or a portion of their data back, end up closing their business because of the reputational damage and the industry cost. On top of all of that, I think a really good thing to do, Olivia, and anybody else that has questions on this call, one of the things that I really like, what made it really easy for me to jump on this call with Tony and their team is, man, they genuinely care about consulting people. They're people that are like, listen, I'm going to brag on them just a little bit, but they're people that are like, listen, I want to give the information as much as humanly possible. And if you don't think that we're the right fit, so be it. But I want to make sure that I give you the right information, so that way you're forearmed. So definitely reach out to them. And I can tell you, they're not here to sell you a used car. They're definitely here to give you the information you need.
And just a small plug on that, we're always willing to have a conversation. We're not going to charge you for an hour or two of our time, but we want to get to know you guys, want to get to know your business, your struggles, your questions, and we're more than happy to be the sounding board.
Yeah, great point, Zach. Great
at
point. We always like to say we're not always here to sell you things.
Right.
Give us a phone call to talk. But Stephen asked a question: how much of protection these days is protecting systems infrastructure versus protecting the employee authorized users? Honestly, that's it's a debatable, interesting question. Authorized and employees is such a critical function, because as Justin touched on earlier, we're just seeing attack vectors coming from so many different ways now.
Correct.
So understanding, we were involved in a AIR where we had, 60, 70 users in a domain and enterprise admin group, right? So understanding how you're managing your staff is so critical, because again, that lateral movement, the biggest one that freaks me out as an old IT guy, back in the day, we used to create a, username and a password on every desktop computer that was the same, right? That one friggin' LSAS is popped, that user can now move lateral across your market. So things like LAPS, that ability to randomize passwords on devices and systems, and then understanding, because think of it in the life of a business. Justin works for a company for 15 years. He's taken 8 roles. Nobody ever goes back and is like, well, let's strip him of his permissions he once had. Let's just keep adding to it. And then the old IT methodology will just copy Justin's account because Sally's doing the same role. Now, Sally has all the same permissions that Justin had of 15 years of company history, right? So there's a lot of time that needs to go into the care and feeding of understanding your SOPs around how you manage identity within an ecosystem. But more importantly, without something managing and watching it, you never know. So it's hard, back in the day, you get into an AD environment of thousands of users, it's really hard to know which one of those thousands of users is a real account versus a bad account. If someone pops that and puts something down in the users that looks like an IIS account, you don't know what it's doing, you don't go check it, you don't notice it in the elevated groups, you need something watching what's going on with that. So to me, it's a little bit of both.
It's definitely both. It's a layer of the onion, and they all need to be protected regardless of how large or how
Mhm.
small they are. Because the truth is, like I said before, humans are the #1 attack vector, and they have been
Oh,
ever
yeah.
since the advent. It's just the way
Yeah.
that it is. Social engineering is a real thing. So,
Yeah.
man, finished right on time.
Perfect. Look at that. Looks like we scripted this and we didn't
What a
even do
time to be alive.
it.
Cool.
Well, appreciate everybody's time today. Hope you enjoy your lunch. Hope we had given you some good information. Zach, Joe, the team here at Sage and Antec are here all the time. You need anything, by all means, please reach out.
Awesome. Have a great one, everyone. Thanks, team.
Thank you.
Have a
Thank
good
you.
afternoon, everyone.
Bye, y'all.
Bye.